Good evening, everyone. It's me, Dr. Plague. We talk a lot about horror on this channel, but the real horror out there is how easy it is for your data to fall in the hands of disreputable people. That's why today's video is sponsored by Aura. While you're enjoying today's spooky video, data brokers, those things that go bump on the web, could already be selling your information to scanners, spammers, and anyone else who may want to target you. Your full name, email, home address, your health records, your relatives, they could all be out there. That's why I've been using Aura. Aura shows me which data brokers are selling my information and automatically submits opt-out requests, just for me. It was simple to use and very intuitive, and I had barely gotten out of the setup process, and it was already blocking over 20 data broker requests on my behalf. Aura protects your passwords, your banking information, everything you need for day-to-day online life. Cleaning up my information not only helps reduce the amount of spam I get, but it also protects me from hackers who could use my information to help them access my social media accounts, bank accounts, other sensitive information. Things like a certain YouTube channel that you all enjoy listening to so much. Aura also does much more to protect me and my family from online threats, the kind you can't see. It comes with other features like antivirus, VPN, password management, parental controls, identity theft insurance, and more, without having to download several different apps. It really is just that easy to set up, and best of all, I get everything at one affordable price. I hear you saying, but Dr. Plague, I have one or two of these tools already. But, dear readers, not having Aura is like locking the front door and leaving the back door wide open. Readers of my fine tales can tell you why that never ends well. Aura is always on, doing the hard work of keeping me safe so I can focus on other tasks like finishing my latest book or uploading my most recent video. I value my privacy, and I know you value yours. You can go to Aura.com, that's AURA.com, to start your 2-week free trial. You can also check out the link below and start your free trial with Aura. So why not give Aura a try and protect yourself from the real monsters out there? Mr. Vermeil, Katie called, raising her hand. I think I see a man with a gun outside. There is no combination of words more perfectly calibrated to turn a teacher's blood to ice. The horror only settled deeper in my chest when I watched my kids go crowding around the window, chattering excitedly to themselves like a shooting star was going by. I don't see him. Where is he? Oh, he's right there, behind the tree. What's he look like? What's he doing? I couldn't see a thing out there myself. The thick, oppressive blanket of mountain fog that always settles on the school made visibility low at the best of times. All I could see was the endless ocean of trees disappearing into that vast backdrop of white. But I trusted my students and took their reports dead seriously. Get down, I finally shouted, once I'd worked out the knot in my throat. Get down under the window! Don't let him see you! It was the first time I'd raised my voice to these kids, and that scared them more than the man outside. The room was a cacophony of squeaking chairs and shoved desks, and as they rushed to huddle under the windows. All the while, my heart was pounding in my ears as I scrambled to pull the Velcro straps over every window that would release the safety shutters. Every instant, I felt certain some homicidal maniac was about to take my head off with a .308 Winchester. I wasn't even just scared to die. I was scared for my students being forced to witness something like that. But I got lucky. Or maybe he had mercy. The only way to reach the headmaster's personal phone was an old red school phone on my desk, with a bit of tape reading "For emergencies only." She's always been very particular that she be called instead of the police during times like these. All I had to do was punch *66, and she picked up in an instant. I'm Embarrassed to imagine what I must have sounded like, the incomprehensible verbal diarrhea of a man who'd never dealt with a situation more deadly than a bicycle crash or a high fever. But luckily, she seemed to parse together exactly what I was getting at, and her stoic, commanding tone silenced my babbling in an instant. It will be dealt with. Sirens. Sirens started blaring all over school, like it was about to be leveled by a tornado. Or maybe nuclear Armageddon. Under the din, my students all frantically whispered to each other, trying to guess at what was going on. "He's a hunter," was the consensus. That almost calmed me down. If he was just some hunter after an elk or a mule deer up here in the Rockies, that was no big deal, right? But for some reason, the word hunter seemed to strike the kids with terror. Outside, I heard the screech of tires and 2 rear doors slammed open. My curiosity piqued. I'd seen that black van labeled security parked in the lot, but I'd never got a glimpse inside. Despite all my better judgment, I couldn't resist the tiniest peek under the corner of the shutters. Out of the van poured 2 individuals dressed less like school security guards and more like the sort of shadowy government agents you'd see in movies. Black suits, shades, earpieces fitting their perfect comb-overs. I think what I saw them do next was the moment that forever changed me, forever shattered my delusions that the universe is ultimately a rational and orderly place. The 2 guards checked off their equipment, dropped to all fours, and broke into a sprint. Under other circumstances, it would have been funny. As it was, it took my breath away. They ran not even like primates would, but with the exact speed and style of wolves. They must have been going 15 miles per minute. Human bodies just don't work that way. We can't twist our bodies in such a way to allow ourselves a full-bore gallop at that kind of speed. Our joints weren't meant to bend in those directions. They disappeared into the forest like hunting dogs let loose upon the scent of prey. I jumped, and a gasp spread through the room as a gunshot erupted in those woods. Then another. 2 shots total, echoing down the foggy valley of the mountain, scaring away the crows. Then came the long silence as I held my breath, waiting to see if the nightmare was over, or if it was just beginning. Then the screaming began. It started as a rumbling murmur, one I couldn't place. Then it acquired peaks and troughs, reaching pitches that managed to strain my ears. At its height, it almost seemed louder than the gunshots had been. It was a man's voice, at least at first. Then it devolved into something that didn't sound human at all, like his vocal cords had been ripped into, and the only sounds he could still produce was the bay of a dying animal. Yet, somehow, even that didn't really horrify me as much as my students' reactions. They seemed relieved, even laughing amongst themselves, as if this proved they were out of danger. The screams dulled, the sirens disappeared, and my students returned to their seats, staring at me as if expecting me to continue the lesson. It was all so surreal, like something out of a dream. Never before in my life have I been surrounded by people, yet so utterly alone. I tried not to break down in front of my students, but unlike my class, I couldn't just move past what had happened, like it had all been no big deal. So like a sleepwalking man acting on instinct, I did the first thing I could think of. I called the headmistress again. Her tone was flat, as if nothing was out of the ordinary. "Vermeil." I wanted to scream at her, but words failed me. I was panting like a dog. I took a drink of water with my shaky hand. I need to know what that was. What was that? Mr. Vermeil, this phone is only to be used in case of emergencies. Emergencies? This isn't an emergency? There was a shootout outside my classroom. Where are the police? The press? They're not coming, she said sternly. It was a false alarm. No one was hurt. Nobody was hurt. Are you hearing yourself? I heard a man wail like he was being fed feet first into a meat. I caught myself glancing at my class. If you had heard the things I'd heard, you wouldn't be so. When I employed you under the auspices of the Integration Initiative, it was because I was assured of your dedication to teaching. Surely you recognize the importance of not allowing your class to fall even a day behind the schedule outlined in the syllabus. We cannot allow even a minor incident to interfere with their... Minor incident? Am I the only one here who hasn't lost their mind? If this is what you consider routine, then I don't want to know, Mr. Vermeil. She spoke in that tone that always silenced me, as if she commanded my very mind. In the silence, she let out a long sigh. When her voice returned, I couldn't tell if she was leveling with me or just humoring me. Tell you what, I can tell you've had a stressful day. Why don't you take the rest of it off? I can have a substitute. Fill in while you get some rest. Okay? I wanted to argue, to scream and shout, but I realized how my students were looking at me and noticed the tears on their cheeks. Needless to say, I did end up taking the day off. All the while, I agonized about whether to quit or not. I mean, this was supposed to be my big break, my first real teaching job since the incident a few years back. No more tutoring, no more subbing, getting to head my very own class and create my own lesson plans again. I spent the night on the couch, watching the news like a hawk. It was all still small-town nonsense. A cat stuck in a tree, a charming local bake sale. Not a word about what had happened in the school on the mountainside. The headmistress's gaslighting was starting to work on me. If nobody saw anything wrong with what had happened, then the problem must be me, right? I must have misinterpreted everything. There had to have been some reasonable explanation for what I'd seen and heard. So the next morning I was right back at work. The thing is, I've never gotten a good explanation for what the Integration Initiative was. I'd assumed it was some sort of remedial education program. After all, the bulk of my classes were severely behind by 5th grade standards. Many needed to learn basic social behaviors, properly expressing their emotions, how to read or write, or even how to speak at all. The Hastings twins, for instance, they were brother and sister, or so I'd been told, but near impossible to tell apart. They were both so androgynous, with flawless pale skin, totally free of a single strand of hair, even eyebrows. They never emoted, never reacted, never even blinked. If you didn't know any better, you'd assume they were mannequins, set up in their desks, poised to stare at me in perfect stillness as I taught. But they were just one of the more extreme examples. A few more were like normal kids, just a little behind. Katie, for instance. When I had a quiet moment in class that day, I noticed her completing a maze in her coloring book with a crayon and beckoned her over. She sat politely across from me as I composed myself. Katie, I just wanted to say you were very brave to speak up yesterday. I know that must have been scary. School is supposed to be safe. If you ever need to talk to me about anything, you can just let me know, okay? She stared at me for a long moment, then said, as casually as you'd discuss the weather, "I hope he suffered." It was a long silence. I blinked, trying to register what I'd heard. "What?" "I hope he died real slow," she continued, her face blank and her tone flat. "I hope they took their time with him. I hope that he felt every moment of it." I wiped the sweat from my brow. That's not... He was a hunter, Mr. Vermeil. He deserved it. I hope they hurt him real bad. I hope they took him somewhere so they could keep him alive. I hope they're taking away his fingernails and his teeth and his eyes, and he's crying and screaming. And Katie, I suddenly cut in, "Do you remember how we talked about no-no subjects?" She nodded. After all, we spent a lot of time in class discussing what was appropriate to say. I continued, trying to hide the quiver in my voice. "Well, it's not appropriate to talk about, death and suffering." It was like a switch had been flipped. In an instant, Katie went right back to being just an ordinary little girl. "Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Vermeil. I'll remember that next time." Just like that, she went right back to her desk, leaving me dazed and stunned, like I'd been punched in the teeth. Even now, I can't help but wonder what she meant by next time. I've learned my lesson, though. Never talk about what happens to anybody. Never even mention it, and the same goes for any other strange oddities I'm beginning to notice around the school, like the ditch full of shed skin of something much larger than any reptile we have here in Colorado, or the sound of loud TV static emanating from a bathroom I'm 100% certain has no television in it. All of it's completely normal to everyone around me, but I can't get it out of my mind. I still check the news and Google obsessively, but can't find the slightest mention of anything off about this place. I did, however, notice something on Facebook. Someone local was asking whether anybody had seen her brother William, a heavy-set man with a big bushy beard who'd gone missing without even his PLB being able to report his location. The post had been made the day after the incident I'd witnessed. Apparently, the last time they'd spoken, William said he was going out on a hunting trip. You're still here. Thanks so much for joining us for tonight's spooky tale. If you'd like a little bit more spooky in your life, why not click on one of the videos that appears at the end of our story, or maybe head on over to one of our playlists where you can get your fill of spooky content. If you like your spooky a little more tactile, I've got a new book that's come out. If you'd like your own copy, there's a link below in the description where you can get your own copy of my spooky book. If you like what you see here on the channel and think you might like to support in a more monetized way, then why not come over to Patreon or become a member on YouTube? Speaking of, let's go ahead and thank our members now. Thanks to Civ Garstad, Unicorn Hollow, and Army Dude for being our Spooky Ghost contributors. Thanks to Janet, Lee Kendall, Saikat, Ronda J, Sue Casper, and Valinator for being our Spooky Skeleton contributors. And thanks to Oh Snap, Hi Stacy, Winter, Xaronan, Stephanie Carrington, Tyler Parker, Cinnamon Fox, Grim Reaper, TomBoiTopUwU, and Queen Sheebah for being our Ghostly Reader tier contributors. And a big thanks to Scott Donahue for being our Ghostly Writer tier contributor. Thanks, everyone. We just couldn't do the show without you. If you'd like to support the channel, then come on down to Patreon or become a member on YouTube. Spooky Skeleton tier contributors, that's our $5 tier, get their spooky 12 hours early at 8:30 a.m. as opposed to 8:30 p.m. My time, of course. And while Ghostly Reading is only a tier that's available on Patreon, you get a signed copy of my book anytime I write one on your doorstep in, hopefully, a timely manner. If you'd like a book, we have many on Amazon. I've got links below if you'd like to follow those. Should get you to my page so you can buy any one of my 8 books I believe we're up to now. I'm sure they'd look really nice on your shelf, and I'll sign them for you if you can find me out in the wild. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.